Hello, this is Mark. Welcome to week 2 of Principles of Management. Just initially want to remind you of what all is due for this week. Clicking on week 2, it looks like we have a discussion. You read the Trader Joe case in the back of the book on page C3. And also review the 6 must-have management skills in Table 1. And then follow the discussion question prompt, and then you also need to respond to other students commenting on skills identified that were the different or the same as yours. So you got to do both of those: comment on skills that are same as yours and skills that are different from yours as far as your response goes. Secondly, you got to do an article review of some concept out of controller planning, related controller planning, and here are what goes on each of the slides right here. We'll need to also take the chapters 4 and 5 quizzes by clicking on these links. And now I'm going to spend a few minutes going over the chapters associated with the quizzes, chapters 4 and 5. For week 1 we looked at chapter 1, the managers and management. Now we're getting into the pillars of management. And the first 2 we're going to look at are planning and controlling. And we'll start off with plans and planning techniques. And within plans and techniques, first we're going to look at how to implement planning techniques. You define your objectives, determine where you currently stand. And here you're looking at your strengths and weaknesses in reflection to your objectives. Thirdly, develop alternatives for future conditions, and look at the impact those alternatives would have on reaching the objectives. Make your plan, and here you're going to be choosing the alternative most likely will accomplish your objectives, and also describe what must be done. Then the 5th step in the process, implement plan, and then evaluate the results. Okay, that's the first thing we need to look over. Second, we want to look at why are we even doing planning? Why implement a planning process? Several different reasons that are pointed out in the book. It improves focus and flexibility. It improves action orientation. And this we're looking at avoiding complacency trap. And complacency trap, what we're talking about is being passively carried along by the flow of events, basically inaction. Just let things go. Third, improves coordination and control. And here we're talking about using something like a hierarchy of objectives. And in a hierarchy of objectives, the way that works is the lower level objectives are ways to reach your higher level ones. So you have to work up through the lower level to attain the higher level. And then the 4th reason why we want to plan is it improves time management. And by doing this, we can avoid the planning fallacy. And the planning fallacy is underestimating the time required to complete a task. Okay. Third topic that is covered in planning and techniques are the types of plans managers use. Got several different ones we're going to look at here. Time range plans. Time range, what we're looking at are plans associated with lengths of periods. We got short range, which is 1 year or less, and long range, which are 3 years. So that's one category of plans. Another is strategic plans. Strategic plans are long-term plans that identify the direction of the company. Operational plans are how you're going to, the things you're going to do to accomplish your parts of your strategic plan. And then your functional plans identify how different parts of your organization will contribute to the strategic plan. Sorry. And then the fourth concept we wanted to look at in the course are the useful planning tools and techniques that are being used. Some of the techniques discussed in the book are forecasting. Basically, forecasting, as you know, is predicting something. So here we're predicting what will happen in the future that will affect management and planning. Contingency plans. These are useful because they enable you to develop alternatives in case something doesn't happen the way it's supposed to. Thirdly, scenario planning. Here what you're doing is identify an alternative future scenario and makes plans to deal with each. So scenario planning, you're looking in the future and see if this happens, what do we need to do? So you try to foresee good and bad things in the future. Fourth is benchmarking. Benchmarking and best practices are kind of one and the same. Benchmarking is comparing performance to other companies, and benchmarking is again best practices, and best practices are usually things that are done to achieve superior performance. So by benchmarking, you're looking to see what everybody else is doing, comparing yourselves to see how you're doing, basically. And the fifth technique that is looked at is participatory planning. And basically what this involves is include everyone when you're doing your planning in the planning process. That's what participatory planning is involving everyone so that everyone has a say. Okay, so that covers the planning part of which is chapter 4. Next we'll look at control and control systems, chapter 5. As far as the control systems go, we have 4 steps in the control process. Starting off with setting the performance objectives and standards is our first step, setting the performance objectives and standards. And we have 2 types of standards involved in this: output and input. Okay, output, you're looking at things like quantity, quality, cost, and time standards. Input, you're looking at the efforts that go into a task. So that's the difference between the 2 types of standards. The second step of the control process is measuring the actual performance. It's fairly self-explanatory. Get quantitative measurements of how you're doing. Third, you compare actual versus objective standards. And to do this, you need what is called a control equation. And the control equation uses a formula, and the formula is need for action equals the desired performance less actual. So that's how we figure out what we need to do, is comparing what we wanted to or planned to do versus what actually happened. And that is the control equation. Then the fourth step is take action to address gaps between the actual and desired performance. So we're looking back at step 3 and see where we had the big difference and see where we can get closer to what we had hoped to do or planned to do. One way to do this is through management by exception. And when you're talking about management by exception, you're talking about focus attention on differences between actual and desired performance. And that's just the term for doing this right here, management by exception. You go through and you focus on what's not done right in order to get to the level that you need to be in your plans. Alright, so those are, as far as control goes, those are the 4 steps. Next we'll look at the different types of controls used by managers. First type is feed forward. Feed forward controls ensure clear directions and needed resources before work begins. It's what that type of control. Concurrent focuses on what happens during the work process. Feedback controls takes place after a job is completed. Internal controls occurs as workers exercise self-discipline in fulfilling job expectations. And lastly, external occurs through direct supervision or administrative systems. And within external control, you've got subsets of external control: bureaucratic, plan, and market. Bureaucratic control, you influence behavior through authority, policies, procedures, job descriptions, things like that. Plan control, you influence behavior through social norms and peer expectations. And market control, influence of market competition on behavior, looks at the influence of market competition on the behavior of the organization. Okay, so far we looked at the different, as far as control goes, the 4 steps, the different types of managers. Now we're going to look for just a minute at the concept of MBO, or management by objectives. And what this is a process of joint objective setting between a superior and a subordinate. It's what management by objectives. And there are 2 types of objectives we would look at in MBO. One is for improvement, and that is focusing on improving performance in a specific way. And then secondly, personal development. And this focuses on expanding job knowledge or skills. So you got 2 types of objectives with MBO: improvement and personal development. And the last section of control that we'll look at is are the control tools and techniques. There are a number of different control tools and techniques out there. Some of I've had some experience with. In the area of quality management, there's TQM, which stands for Total Quality Management. And what this does is describe efforts to make quality an everyday performance objective, and basically try to do things right the first time. TQM. Six Sigma, this is a statistically performance driven model where in order to qualify for Six Sigma, you cannot have more than 3.4 defects per million of whatever it is you do. So pretty tough standards to be Six Sigma. So that's the area of quality. Gantt charts or something else that are used some. Basically they are graphs showing the scheduling of tasks that go into completing a project. CPM PERT charts combine the critical path with PERT. Critical path is from start to finish in the process, the pathway that takes the longest completion time. That's what a critical path is. Another technique is used is inventory control. EOQ stands for economic order quantity. And what it does is basically automatically places an order for an item when it drops to a certain level. And then there's JIT, or just-in-time scheduling. Basically here you don't keep inventory, that you have deliveries scheduled to get to you right when you need them. Financial controls. So things that are used there are break-even analysis. Basically what that is, perform what-if calculations under different revenue and cost projections. Then secondly, under financial controls, we look at financial ratio analysis, and here we do financial performance measures, usually taking off documents like balance sheets and income statements, things like that. Then lastly, we have an overall control, and that is a balanced scorecard is used for overall. Some of these other just dealt with specific inventory, financial, but an overall control is a balanced scorecard. Basically it measures performance in financial, customer service, internal processes, innovation, and learning goals. So overall is trying to see how you're doing from a control stand overall. That's really all I had to go over today. Again, just a review of the chapters 4 and 5. We will pick up in week 3 and continue on. If you have any questions or need anything, send me an email or post a message in discussions and we will get to you. Have a good day. Bye.